Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we'll discuss some lab test profiles. The basic objective of this lecture is to familiarize you about different tests which may be asked in the examination for the diagnosis of the different diseases related to clinical chemistry and other uh, diseases. Uh, in this lecture, we will focus on what type of the tests are advised and what are the common tests which are asked in particularly the VIVA also. Students mostly make the mistake of telling about the baseline tests about the diagnosis of the different diseases. These lectures on different topics have been already covered, and today we'll just give a bird eye view, and more emphasis will be given on different tests which may be used for the different diseases which are common. First of all, I read the scenario and just focus on the different aspects of the scenario. 67 years old man had experienced central chest pain on exertion for last 2 days, but in the afternoon of the day prior to admission, had a particularly severe episode of the pain lasting for an about hour. On admission, following morning, he was noted to be pale, but there were no other abnormalities on examination except pallor. He gave history of taking medicines for his low HB. Electrocardiogram was normal. The plasma enzymes taken at the time were as follows. Now, if you look at the scenario, it's a lengthy scenario, but you have to focus on different things. Central chest pain is there, which highlights, which is on exertion, which highlights towards the MI. And other thing is, he is having the pallor, and for that he has been taking the medicines. So all this is before attempting the questions, you must keep the scenario, the key points in the scenario in your mind. What are the profiles? CPK is 234. The normal is up to 260. Now this value is important, although it is given in that one. CKMB is 28. It is less than 25. AST to 45. It is almost on the upper limit. And LDH is grossly raised, that is upper limit is 460, but it is 2500. Now, considering this one, from these findings, you must interpret either he is having infarction or not. For infarction, the MB should be raised and CK should be raised. These are the, although CK is not that specific, but MB is more specific. This enzyme is not specific for the myocardial infarction. If you look at the scenario again, that he has experienced a central chest pain, but it lasted for 2 days, and there is no indication of any abnormality related to that, and only key points are pallor and taking medicine for that. Now, what else? Is there any evidence of this man has had a myocardial infarction? Considering these investigations, we can safely say until unless we have some other investigations to confirm that if it is more than 6% of the total CK, then it is significant. But the most significant finding is over here, LDH 2500. But this 2500 of the LDH level is grossly raised, but AST is normal. These are, although this is not routinely used for the diagnosis of the myocardial infarction, the important parameter is the CPK MB. The question is, does this man has the infarction? Here we can say no, until and unless we confirm the diagnosis. What further test would you like to order? In this case, for the confirmation of the MI, we'll go for this one because the duration has been quite long. It is not the 2 hours, 4 hours, or 8 hours. It is having pain for last 2 days. In this case, you can say we can confirm the diagnosis by having the level of the troponin I. But what about this one? Here we have to see patient is having something else. It is related to this LDH level may be raised in anemias. And anemia, particularly the megaloblastic anemia and hemolytic anemia. For that, there is an indication in the scenario also that the patient has this pallor and he is having taking medicines for low HP. Again, the electrocardiogram was normal. There is no structural changes seen in that one, which highlight towards the myocardial infarction. So the interpretation of the scenario is more important, and interpretation of these investigations is more significant. These you must keep in mind that the specific investigations for any particular disease are very pinpointed. For example, CKMB and TROP-I is the most important investigation for diagnosis of the MI. This investigation is broad because it has 5 isoenzymes which may be due to anyone. So in this case, there is no evidence of the infarction because ECG is normal and there is no given in this investigation profile, then CKMB is normal. What test will go for the vitamin B12, folate, peripheral smear? These are the investigations which will perform for the further confirmation of the raised LDH level. And we'll also go for the, if it is due to hemolysis, then we'll go for the direct and indirect bilirubin levels also. Cardiac biomarker was basically CKMB, troponins, and myoglobin. Myoglobin is not routinely performed. It is not available in all the labs, but these two are easily available in the all the labs, and it is called. These are the common investigations which are. Whenever you are asked what important biomarker for the cardiac diseases, particularly the MI, you will have to speak out only CKMB and troponin. And if anybody asks you the what other, then according to the time frame, then there may be myoglobin. Now, these investigations are not routinely performed, so these you don't have to tell. You will say that they are not routinely used for the confirmation or diagnosis of the MI. Then there are other advanced investigations which are also not available. This we have discussed in the previous lectures also. I'm just giving you the revision of the lectures and one different cases from each topic. Ischemia modified albumin, glycogen phosphorylase BB, then fatty acid binding proteins. Although these are most of the academic interest and diagnostic purpose of these parameters is also significant, but they are not routinely available over here. Then next scenario is a 24 years old male presents with fever, nausea, severe vomiting, and pain in the right hypochondrium. He also tells about passage of dark colored urine. His liver function test report reveals bilirubin is 9.3, AST 1052, ALT 1420, ALP 170, total protein 7.5, albumin is 3.7. These are normal. This is a little bit raised, not too much. Now these are the findings which are important. Now, if you look at the questions, what is your diagnosis? What you can write over here? There are two options. You can simply write the jaundice, yes, because bilirubin is raised, but the examiner is more concerned that are you pinpointing the diagnosis? Now, these enzymes, which are grossly raised, they pinpoint towards them. Here, the second question is give points that suggest the diagnosis. Now, these are the 2 points which suggest the diagnosis along with these investigations: fever, nausea, vomiting, and pain in the right hypochondrium and dark colored urine. These all goes towards acute hepatitis. The acute hepatitis can be due to different causes. So in this answer, in this question, you will write the answer acute hepatitis. What are the points? Suggest the raised enzymes and the clinical presentation of the patient. Which serological markers would you like to perform in this case? Very simple. He is 24 years old. He may be having, because there are many common causes like hepatitis A, hepatitis E, and then hepatitis B, C. In B and C, this acute condition is there, but it is very rare. It is most probably due to hepatitis A, because hepatitis E is more important and more prevalent in the pregnant females and in other, but these enzymes are also raised in that one, but then it becomes very serious condition. So serological markers you can write over here: anti-HAV, IgG, IgM, and IgG. Then uh, if you have to be more focused, then you can only write anti-HAV, IgM. But if you write IgG also, it will be also beneficial. Then hepatitis B surface antigen, because screening is also done to rule out the other causes of the viral hepatitis, like anti-HEV, then HPS-AG, then anti-HCV. These are the investigations you can write over here. So this is a very simple scenario, but you have to attempt according to the investigations. Here, you must know, you may be asked in the exam, what is the normal level of the bilirubin? This is very important. I'll just share with you on the WhatsApp group the norm, some common normal values which you must remember. People or students say that it is up to 2, it is up to 3. It's not like that. You have to, this is a very basic parameter. And what other fractions of the bilirubin are, like conjugated and unconjugated, or direct or indirect. You must be able to differentiate between the two. In which condition unconjugated is raised, in which condition conjugated is raised. This you must have it in your mind, but the normal values of these parameters must be in your mind, particularly related to the LFT, like bilirubin and these enzymes. Then, what is the hepatic profile? Serum bilirubin, total, direct, and indirect. Then enzymes, which are the hepatic enzymes. Then these are the obstructive enzymes, which show if there is obstruction in the hepatobiliary system. Then proteinalbumin, which is a synthetic function highlighting of them by these two parameters. And urine complete is the most important investigations to support this hepatitis and to get any evidence of the hemolysis or presence of the increased bilirubin and urobilinogen. Then in hepatitis profile, these are the investigations which you must keep in mind. If you are asked only what is hepatitis profile, then you have to tell along with the serum bilirubin level and enzyme levels. If you are asked about the what are the obstructive enzymes, then you have to tell about these two enzymes. You are supposed to know what are the obstructive enzymes. This is the hepatic profile, and you must maybe ask what are the different tests which are included in the hepatic profile or in the hepatitis profile. The one thing is the lab diagnosis of jaundice. Common question asked. There are three types: prehepatic, hepatic, and posthepatic. And you must know how to differentiate. If you this table we have already discussed. These are the features, and if you just focus, you can solve many questions related to your hepatic conditions for the diagnosis. Unconjugated, conjugated, these enzymes, obstructive enzymes, urine bilirubin, and feces. The post-hepatic, you must know in which, like AST and ALT, may be normal in the prehepatic, and intrahepatic, it may be mildly or very grossly elevated. So, whenever you are getting your scenario solved, you have to keep them this table in mind. A 13-year-old boy recovering from sore throat caused by group A streptococcus develops malaise with nausea and fever. He passes dark color urine and ASO titer is markedly increased. Now, this is a simple scenario. I have just put the picture. It may be given in you in the OSPI, or it may be just a simple question, or it may be like the SEQ. His lab results are urinary proteins is 5 gram. Serum urea is 5 gram is too much. That is normal is less than 150 milligram. Now please focus on this one. This value you must remember. Here most of the students make the mistake that what is the normal level of the urinary protein per day. Then serum urea is 70. These two values, urea and creatinine, must be in your mind with clear concept that it is up to 20 to 40 milligram per deciliter, and then serum creatinine 0.7 to 1.2 milligram. Urine microscopy reveals red cells and red cell casts. Now, this scenario is very crystal clear that it is the post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, acute post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. What is your diagnosis? You have to write this. Post-streptococcal acute glomerulonephritis is just the answer. This can be in the SEQ, having just 1 or 2 marks, then it can be in the OSPI. Give the diagnostic immunofluorescence microscopic findings. You must have studied in the after the renal lectures that what are the discrete coarse granular deposits of the complement C3 IgG in glomerular basement membrane and mesenteric. This is all what you have to write. If you want to write more detail in that, although you can write, but there is no need of that. Or depending on the number of the questions, rather than wasting on the time on the writing a long list of the other findings, these if it's carrying only 2 marks, then you have to just write this one. You can get to 2 marks easily. These are the renal functions tests. Serum creatinine, this is commonly asked. What are the different renal function tests which you can perform for the analysis of the renal injury? Serum creatinine, serum urea, urine complete examination. These three are the most important thing. These three you must never forget when you are answering the question of what are the renal function tests. Then creatinine clearance, it is the assessment of the kidney injury in the early stages. How it is performed, that is a lengthy procedure, but these three with normal values you must know. Then uric acid, electrolytes, bicarbonate, pH, then calcium and phosphorus, and then lastly the renal biopsy. These are the tests which are used for the assessment of the kidney status. So renal function test, very commonly asked, what is the normal level of the creatinine? What is the normal level of the urea? That sheet will which will be shared with you will be having all the values, common parameters you must remember, and just the figures you have. You don't have to give a wrong type of the that serum creatinine is up to 5 milligram, which is commonly answered by the students. Then we come to the diabetes profile. This is very important, and just to please focus on this, that here for the diagnosis we have three things: blood glucose fasting, blood glucose random, HbA1c, and glucose tolerance test. The value of fasting and the random, we have discussed in detail in the lectures, but these values must be very crystal clear. If any examiner is interested in just what is the normal fasting blood glucose level, and you are saying it is up to 120, then you are having a bad impact on that one. So how to diagnose? Will go for the fasting level. If it is more than 126, then patient is diabetic. If it is less than 100, then patient is not diabetic. If the blood glucose random is more than 200, then patient is diabetic. If it is less than that, less than 140, patient is normal level of the HbA1c up to 6.4 is the normal, but if it is more than that, then patient is diabetic. Then this is also, the question may be asked, what is the parameter which will be useful for the assessment of the blood glucose level in the past 3 months? This you already know, that is the HbA1c. Glucose tolerance test is only performed when there is doubt about these tests. If there is some borderline values, then we have to go for that. Then for the assessment of the complications, because kidney is mostly involved, microalbuminuria. Now, regarding this, we must have the clear concept what is microalbuminuria. Microalbuminuria is that condition in which albumin is excreted in the urine, but it is within the normal range, but slightly above that one, and which is not detectable with the routine urine examination. And urea creatinine that we have discussed, these are the parameters which tell about the kidney status. And more importantly, this creatinine is more significant as compared to the urea for the assessment of the kidney injury. Then lipid profile. In diabetic patients, lipid profile like cholesterol, triglyceride, HDL, LDL, these are assessed for the second other metabolic disorders which are common in diabetes. What is the diagnostic criteria? As I said you, the fasting is defined as no caloric intake or fat at least intake for at least 8 hours. If the level is more than 126, then it is clearly. If it is less than, then it is borderline. If it is between 100 and 26, then it is borderline. Then we have to confirm it with further testing, repeat testing or the diagnostic. The second point in your diagnostic criteria is 2-hour post-glucose more than 200 milligram during an oral glucose tolerance test. The test should be performed as described by the WHO. You will be asked about what is the diagnostic criteria. In this, you have to tell about all these 2 or 3 parameters which we are going to discuss. In oral glucose tolerance test, we have to give 75 gram glucose dissolved in the water and then test for the blood glucose level at different intervals at the fasting, then after 1 hour, then after 2 hours. These are the 3 levels which we are discussed in the oral glucose for the interpretation. Then HbA1c. The WHO recommends that if it is more than 6.4 or it is 6.5%, then it is clearly the patient is diabetic and in the diagnostic criteria. For the optimal control of the diabetes, it should be, the level is something that it should be less than 7 or 6.5, then it is ideal control. Or in a patient with the classic symptoms of the hyperglycemia or hyperglycemic crisis, a random blood glucose level of more than 200. This is diagnostic of diabetes mellitus. This diagnostic criteria is very common question which is asked for regarding the diabetes. So these values most commonly, more than 50% of the students, they normally say it is 120, it is 100, it is 200, the fasting level. Then, but this already we discussed in the lecture. You go in that lecture and see the values which are given. But it is also important to remember that 126 figure and the 200 figures. It is the 2 hours postprandial glucose level. Then there are 2 conditions, hyperglycemic hyperosmolar syndrome and diabetic ketoacidosis. We'll discuss just what are the parameters to differentiate between the 2. This is the plasma glucose or pH, then bicarbonate, ketones, and serum ketones, osmolarity, anion gap, mental status. Here, basic points you must keep in mind are the, in diabetic ketoacidosis, it is the level of the blood glucose is mostly more than 250. But in hyperosmolar syndrome, hyperosmolar, hyperglycemic syndrome, it is mostly more than 600. If at the patient is unconscious and the blood sugar is more than 600 or 700, then it clearly towards that one. The second point is the presence of the ketones, in which there may be negative and maybe very small amount, but it is present in heavy amount in the urine in that. Then on here it will be pH will be less, and here the pH will be more. These are the few points you must keep in mind. Now, the diagnostic criteria for the according to the American Diabetic Association, the DK and HHS, as I said, it is 600 and it is 250. Then urine ketones, absence of the severe ketonemia or ketonuria, then metabolic. These are the 3 points which differentiate between the two conditions. These we have discussed in detail, but just I am going through superficially that these values, which are the normal values, you may be asked what is the total T3 level in the body. These are the common parameters, particularly with this one, this TSH level you must not forget, along with the T3 and T4. You may be asked what is the total level. If you know these one, you can easily diagnose the case scenario and interpret the values very easily. But for Viva purpose, these 2 or 3 parameters must be remembered what is the normal. Here, this is the chart which shows what is the hyperthyroidism untreated, then hyperthyroidism, T3, thyrotoxicosis. These are the different conditions in which what will be the level of the serum. This we all have discussed in there. This is just the revision, and just to highlight you, emphasize on the different important topics which are important, and you ignore it before the examination. And particularly for the OSPI and for the Viva, these are more important because in Viva you will be asked very small questions. What is the main test which will be used for the diagnosis of the thyroid diseases? Then for that one, it is the very most sensitive test is the serum TSH. Similarly, in parathyroid profile, then hyperparathyroidism, primary, secondary, and tertiary. This we have already discussed. The serum calcium, serum phosphate, and serum PTH. Very simple. Just go for this one. The serum calcium and phosphorus, they go in opposite direction. Okay. Only in tertiary where there is a non-responsiveness of the PTH hormone, then they will be in the both will be increased. But for the primary and the secondary differentiation, these things should be kept in mind. You also must know what is the normal level of the serum phosphorus and the serum calcium. This is important. This is a common parameter, and now in the 4th year, after passing through the 4th year, you will be attending the wards. You must know basic parameters and what are their normal values. Then comes the bone profile. For the analysis of the different diseases of the bone, what other tests can be used? In this same parameters like calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D, PTH, and magnesium. These are the important which are used for the bone profile and also for the parathyroid profile. These are the reference range or the normal range which are used. But the term reference range is preferably used for these one. Calcium is 8.62. This is wrongly written. Sorry, this is 10.4. Then phosphorus is 0.821. This is again in the millimole, but it is okay. But here it is wrongly written. Then I will just share the sheet that will be, you must keep in mind, or you can get it from the books. Then PTH, then magnesium. Now, in the end, we'll just go for the how to diagnose a case of the anemia. What investigations are important for the diagnosis? There are a lot of causes of the different morphological and based on the nutritional and other hemolytic and cytoplastic iron deficiency. But you will ask about only about the basic things. The basic investigation is the CBC, complete blood count. Just I repeated, this is complete blood count. When you are asked what is the CBC and for what it is performed and what does it mean, you know, some students are not able to answer this one. So complete blood count, complete blood picture, these are the parameter tests which are used for the diagnosis. This is the baseline investigations which is advised to the patient for any patient coming to the hospital or for the assessment of many other diseases also. What is included in the CBC? That is the WBC count, RBC count, hemoglobin, hematocrit, MCV, mean corpuscular volume, mean corpuscular hemoglobin concentration, then platelet level. These are the important parameters which you must remember with their normal values. I'm focusing again that these are the important parameters, particularly the WBC and hemoglobin. You must know what is the normal level of the hemoglobin in males, in females. This is a common mistake made by the students that they just have the idea that it is, if it is 14, they say it is 14 milligram, but it is 14 gram. So although it is not important at this stage, but for a fourth year student, it is very important that he must know that what is the normal level of the WBC count, what is the normal level of the hemoglobin, what are the units, because you have to interpret the report, you have to see the report also. These are the basic parameters: hemoglobin, hematocrit, MCV, MCH, and MCHC. These are all the part of the CBC. These are the basic tests on which we highlight on which direction we have to move for the assessment of the type of the anemia. Then other tests are the peripheral smear, serum iron, total iron binding capacity, ferritin, vitamin B12, and folate. These are the different investigations for diagnosing of iron deficiency and megaloblastic and other uh, diseases, nutritional disorders. Retics may be the important parameter for the assessment of the RBC and synthesis of the RBCs and for the hemolysis also. Purpose of this lecture was just to familiarize you some basic profiles and some basic investigations and some case scenarios. Thank you very much.